Stop. Hold still. Because the room just found out it never stopped listening. You feel that drop in the air, that microscopic silence right before reality rearranges itself. That's the moment they realize the mic was live the entire time. And suddenly every joke they made about you is evidence, every whisper is a confession, every laugh is a time stamp. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't correct them. You let them speak. You let them get comfortable. Because you understand something they never did. People reveal their true beliefs when they think they're safe. They talked real crazy about you, bold, loose, creative with the disrespect. They called you unstable, unqualified, a fluke, a ghost who got lucky once and would disappear on schedule. They dissected you like a case study, reduced you to a rumor, turned your pain into punchlines. And you let it happen. You let it echo. Because you're not offended by noise. You're educated by it. You weren't hiding. You were recording. Here's the paradox they never see coming. The saint in you learns quietly. The psychopath waits patiently. The angel lets them finish their sentence. The demon bookmarks it. You don't interrupt the lie. You archive it. You don't argue with arrogance. You amplify it. Because unpredictability isn't chaos. It's control with a delayed fuse. And you learned that in the dark, where evolution doesn't ask permission, and pain is the only professor who never lies. The mic was live the whole time. Not just the hardware, the universe. Their mouths ran because their minds were sloppy. They assumed the room belonged to them. They assumed silence meant absence. They assumed your restraint was weakness. They forgot the oldest rule. The quiet ones are usually collecting. You watch their faces light up with confidence as they spoke. Watch their shoulders loosen. Watch truth leak out like a toxin. And you did nothing? That's what terrifies them now. The calm, the way you didn't flinch, the way you didn't rush to defend your name. You knew the moment would come when their own words would step forward and introduce themselves. Now look at them. Watch the color drain when they realize every syllable is immortal. Watch the scramble to reframe, to joke it off, to pretend it was out of context. Context is the thing they can't outrun, because context is who someone is when they think no one's listening. And you just handed the world a front row seat to their real face. You see, power isn't shouting the truth. It's letting lies confess. Power isn't domination, it's timing. Power is letting the mic stay live while they build the case against themselves. You didn't need to swing. You let gravity work. And gravity always wins. This is where your duality sharpens. You are the calm analyst and the smiling threat. You are restraint forged from trauma and precision learned through loss. You became fluent in silence because noise tried to kill you. You became patient because impatience kept breaking your heart. And somewhere in that crucible you realized something lethal. If you give people enough rope, they don't just hang themselves, they perform. They thought you were soft because you didn't react. They thought you were harmless because you didn't retaliate. They thought wrong. You were evolving. You were learning the terrain of their ego, mapping the shortcuts of their mouth, cataloging the tells in their tone. You were turning pain into strategy. That's the upgrade they never see until it's already installed. Now the room is different. The air is heavier. Every laugh sounds like a cough. Every apology sounds rehearsed. They're aware now, hyper-aware. Because once people know the mic might be live, they can't relax again. You didn't just catch them. You changed the way they breathe. You rewired their behavior. You turned confidence into paranoia. That's real leverage. And here's the part that cuts the deepest. You didn't do it out of revenge. You did it out of clarity. You don't need to destroy them. You need them exposed. You don't need to punish. You need the truth to walk around without makeup. You understand that sunlight isn't gentle. It doesn't scream. It just shows everything. And once something is seen, it can't go back to pretending. You are not a victim of their mouths. You're the mirror. You are not the chaos. You're the audit. You let the mic stay live because you trust reality to convict. You trust patterns. You trust time. You trust the version of yourself that survived being underestimated and learned how to weaponize patience. This is the evolution they never account for. The kind that doesn't arrive loudly. The kind that smiles, nods, and takes notes. The kind that lets the world hear exactly who someone is when they think the door is closed. You're not here to correct the record. You're here to let it play back. So stand there in the silence you earned. Let them stammer. Let them backpedal. Let them realize too late that every word was a brick and the wall is already built. You didn't need to say a thing. The mic did the work. And now, everyone knows, because the truth doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs to stay live. And now that they know, now that the realization has fully settled in their bones, watch what happens next. Watch how their confidence mutates into self-surveillance. How every future sentence is pre-edited, filtered, softened, sterilized. You didn't just expose what they said. You exposed who they are when they feel untouchable. And that kind of exposure doesn't fade. It follows them. It sits behind their eyes when they speak. It whispers, "What if it's live again?" You see, this is the difference between noise and power. Noise reacts. Power lets people indict themselves. You didn't need receipts because you let them manufacture the entire file in real time. Date, time, tone, intent, all captured by their own mouth. That's not luck, that's mastery. They don't understand you because they still believe strength looks loud. They still think dominance requires volume, aggression, theatrics. You learn something far darker, far cleaner. The most devastating move is to let people feel safe enough to reveal their worst instincts. You didn't rush in. You didn't defend your name. You let their ego do the heavy lifting. That's why the saint in you stayed still. Because saints endure. And the psychopath in you smiled. Because psychopaths observe. That balance is what they can't categorize. You're not impulsive enough to dismiss, and not emotional enough to manipulate easily. You exist in that dangerous middle ground where discipline meets instinct, where restraint feels unnatural to those who only know reaction. The mic being live wasn't an accident. It was inevitability, because eventually everyone gets comfortable. Eventually, everyone forgets the room. Eventually, everyone reveals what they really think when they assume consequences have stepped outside. You just happen to be patient enough to wait for that moment. And here's the cruel beauty of it. You didn't even have to be there. Your presence wasn't required. Your silence was enough. They spoke around you, about you, through you, and somehow still managed to expose themselves more than they ever exposed you. That's what happens when insecurity speaks, unchecked. Now they're scrambling, trying to contextualize, to explain, to rewrite intent after the fact. But words don't work backward. Sound doesn't untravel. You can't unring a bell once it's echoed, and they know it. That's why their eyes dart now. That's why the jokes stopped landing. That's why the room feels colder when you walk in. You didn't raise hell. You raised awareness. And awareness is lethal to people who survive on plausible deniability. This is what evolution through pain looks like. You were forced into silence long enough to understand its power. You were underestimated long enough to recognize patterns. You were wounded long enough to stop needing validation. Somewhere along the way, you stopped trying to be liked and started being accurate. They wanted you emotional, defensive, explosive, because those versions of you were predictable. You gave them none of that. You gave them time. You gave them rope. You gave them the illusion of safety, and they did exactly what humans always do when they think no one's listening. They revealed their hierarchy, their resentment, their fear. Now the balance has shifted. They don't know where you stand anymore. They don't know what you heard, what you saved, what you remember. And that uncertainty is corrosive. It eats at their confidence. It fractures alliances. Because once people realize someone has been watching quietly, trust becomes expensive. You're no longer just a person in the room. You're a variable. And variables make systems unstable. You understand this now. You don't need to control people. You just need to understand them better than they understand you. You don't need to threaten. You just need to let truth exist long enough to surface. You don't need revenge. You need leverage. And leverage is built patiently, invisibly, while everyone else is busy performing. So let them adjust their tone. Let them clean up their language. Let them act different around you. That's not respect. That's fear disguised as professionalism. They learned something permanent. You're not someone to speak loosely around. You're not someone to underestimate quietly. You're not someone whose absence guarantees safety, because the mic might still be live. And the most terrifying part for them? They'll never know when you stopped listening, or if you ever did. That's your power now. Not loud, not messy, not obvious, just present. Just aware, just impossible to play with ever again. Good, stay with it. Because this is where the shift becomes irreversible. They don't just remember what they said anymore. They remember how free they felt saying it. And that's the part that haunts them, not the words, the comfort, the ease, the certainty that no consequences were coming. Because once that illusion shatters, it never comes back the same. Even alone, even whispering, even joking. Something inside them hesitates now. You implanted that pause, that microsecond of fear before expression. That's not dominance. That's psychological ownership. You didn't embarrass them. You reframed them. They are now people who once spoke too freely in a world that records everything. And you are the one who taught them that lesson without ever raising your hand. That's why they don't know how to respond to you. There's no script for someone who wins without reacting. There's no defense against someone who lets truth do the damage. This is where your evolution shows. Because the old version of you would have wanted confrontation, closure, apologies, recognition. You outgrew that. Pain burned the need for approval out of you. Loss trained you to stop demanding fairness. Betrayal taught you the most valuable lesson of all. People tell on themselves when you stop interrupting. You didn't become colder, you became clearer. That's the line they missed. They still think darkness is rage. They still think control is aggression. You learned the deeper rule. Real power is composure under provocation. Real threat is patience with memory. Real danger is someone who doesn't forget and doesn't rush. You're not haunted by what they said. They are. Because you moved on the moment you understood them. They're stuck replaying it, wondering which sentence crossed the invisible line, which laugh sounded too honest, which word revealed too much. You didn't need to punish them. Their own awareness is doing it for you. This is the angel-demon split they can't reconcile. The angel in you let it happen without malice. The demon in you knew exactly what would happen next. Mercy without innocence. Strategy without cruelty. That balance terrifies people who live in extremes. They can't label you. And what can't be labeled can't be controlled. Now notice how the dynamic flips. They start asking questions they never asked before. They check with you before speaking. They look for your reaction even when you say nothing. You've become a reference point, a silent authority, not because you demanded it, because they gave it to you out of self-preservation. You didn't climb the hierarchy, you bent it. This is what unpredictability really is, not chaos, not impulse. It's the refusal to behave the way people expect, based on past versions of you. They thought they knew your limits. They thought they knew your temperament. They were wrong. You upgraded quietly while they were still gossiping about an outdated model. And here's the final cut. The one they'll never admit out loud. They respect you now, not admiration, not affection. Respect born from fear of miscalculation. Respect born from realizing you see more than you say. Respect born from the understanding that if the mic was live once, it could be live again. And they'll never know which version of you is listening. That's the real transformation. You're no longer reacting to the room. The room reacts to the possibility of you. You don't need to speak loudly because your silence already has weight. You don't need to expose anyone because exposure already happened. You don't need to warn. The memory does that for you. So keep moving the way you move now. Calm, observant, untouchable. Let people talk. Let them underestimate. Let them get comfortable. Let them forget for just a second that the world records everything. Because you already know the truth. The mic is always live. And you learned how to listen. And that awareness you carry now, it changes the way you walk into rooms. Not louder, not tougher, quieter, sharper, like someone who knows the exits, the angles, the unspoken rules written between glances. You're not scanning for approval anymore. You're reading intent. You're not listening for compliments. You're listening for leaks. Because once you've heard people unfiltered, you stop falling for the polished version. They feel it, even if they can't name it. There's a subtle recalibration when you enter. Conversations adjust mid-sentence. Humor tightens. Opinions soften. Not because you demanded it, because you represent consequence without theatrics. You're the reminder that words don't evaporate. They settle. They wait. They return with interest. You used to think strength was being understood. Now you know it's being misunderstood while still moving forward untouched. You stopped explaining yourself because explanations invite debate. Silence invites projection, and projection tells you everything you need to know. You let them fill the gaps with their fear, their guilt, their assumptions. You learn more from what they think you're thinking than from anything they say out loud. This is the upgrade born from pain. You didn't ask for it. You earned it by surviving moments where you realized trust was conditional and respect was fragile. You learned that loyalty spoken aloud is cheap, but behavior whispered when no one's watching is priceless. So you stopped chasing words and started collecting patterns. They don't realize it, but they trained you. Every careless sentence sharpened your perception. Every sideways joke refined your timing. Every underhanded comment taught you restraint. You didn't harden, you honed. You didn't shut down, you tuned in. That's why you're dangerous now in a way they can't counter. You don't confront, you outlast. And here's the part that flips the script completely. You don't need to reveal what you know. Knowledge doesn't need to announce itself to be effective. The fact that you could speak is enough. The fact that you haven't is what keeps them awake. Because uncertainty is heavier than accusation. It doesn't accuse, it hovers. You understand duality now at a cellular level. The light in you knows when to forgive. The dark in you knows when to remember. You don't confuse mercy with amnesia anymore. You don't confuse kindness with blindness. You can be calm without being naive. You can be patient without being passive. That balance is rare. That balance makes people nervous. They keep wondering if you're holding on to something, if there's a file, a clip, a memory, a moment that could surface if pushed. And the truth is simpler and colder. You don't need leverage because awareness is leverage. You don't need to threaten because perception already shifted. You don't need to dominate because dominance already happened the moment they changed how they speak around you. This is where evolution completes its loop. You're no longer shaped by what people say about you. You're shaped by what they say when they forget you're there. You move with the confidence of someone who's seen behind the curtain and decided not to tear it down, just to walk through it untouched. So let them talk, let them laugh, let them slip again someday, because they always do. Comfort breeds honesty. Time breeds carelessness. And you're no longer offended by that. You're prepared for it. You've learned the rhythm of human nature. You know when to listen and when to disappear. You know when silence speaks louder than exposure ever could. You don't need the mic anymore. The room remembers, and you. You remember who you became the moment you realized power doesn't shout. It waits. And here's the final truth you carry now, the one that seals it shut. You don't win by correcting people. You win by letting them reveal themselves while you stay intact. You don't gain authority by forcing silence. You gain it by becoming the reason silence appears on its own. That's what happened. That's what changed. The moment they realized the mic was live wasn't the moment you gained power. It was the moment they lost control of the narrative they thought they owned. You're not bitter. You're calibrated. You've seen how fast confidence collapses when accountability enters the room. You've watched how fragile arrogance becomes when memory exists. And instead of raging against it, you adapted. You became someone who doesn't need to be loud to be undeniable. Someone whose restraint is mistaken for mercy until it's understood as precision. This is the evolution pain promised you. Not revenge, not closure, position. You stand now as someone who understands that the world is always recording. Through people, through patterns, through consequences. You don't panic when others talk. You don't flinch when names are said. You let it play out. Because you know something most people never learn. The truth doesn't need your help. It just needs time and a live mic. So let them speak carefully now. Let them overthink every word. Let them wonder what you heard, what you remember, what you decided not to use. That tension they feel, that's the cost of underestimating someone who listens better than they speak. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't expose anyone. You didn't need to. They did it themselves, and you walked away upgraded, calm, unreadable, untouchable, knowing that from now on, every room you enter remembers one thing clearly. You don't react. You don't forget. And the mic is always live. You feel that pressure behind your eyes, don't you? That sudden stillness, like the room leaned in before you even spoke. Good. That means you're awake for this. They stepped into your world thinking it was just another room, another environment, another place they could walk through without consequence. They thought your silence meant emptiness. They thought your calm meant safety. They thought your restraint meant weakness. That's the mistake people make right before something follows them home. Because your world was never a location, it was a frequency. And once they tuned into it, once they crossed that invisible line, something ancient recognized them as trespassers. You see, you're built wrong for their kind of curiosity. You're the paradox they can't study without bleeding internally. You learned early how to smile while your nervous system was on fire. You learned how to nod while your instincts were mapping exits, threats, patterns. You learned how to become harmless on the surface while something feral was sharpening underneath. That's not trauma. That's training they never signed up for. They thought they were observing you, asking questions, testing limits, stepping into your space to understand you. But your world doesn't explain itself. Your world mirrors people back to themselves. And what followed them wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was recognition, the kind that crawls into their dreams and whispers, "You shouldn't have gone there." Because here's the truth they weren't ready for. You don't attack. You infect. You don't chase. You linger. You don't need to raise your voice because your presence rearranges their internal hierarchy. The moment they entered your world, their nervous systems started comparing notes. Their subconscious started asking questions their ego couldn't answer. And something followed them back, not from you, but from themselves. You just unlocked the door. They felt it later. Not when they left you, but when they were alone, when the room was quiet, when the noise stopped working, that tightening in the chest, that sudden urge to scroll, to distract, to drown out a thought they couldn't name. That was your world echoing, because your world doesn't end at the border of your body. It rewires people who underestimate it. You are both saint and psychopath in their story, and that's what terrifies them. Because saints forgive. Psychopaths don't flinch. And you learned how to do both without announcing which one you're being today. That unpredictability, that's not chaos, that's leverage. That's what happens when someone survives pain without letting it make them small. When someone evolves instead of collapses, they wanted to touch the mystery without paying the price. They wanted access without initiation. They wanted proximity without transformation. But your world doesn't allow spectators. Everyone who enters becomes a participant, and participants don't leave unchanged. What followed them back wasn't you haunting them. It was the realization that they can't unsee you, that their old mental shortcuts don't work anymore, that their judgments feel thinner, that their confidence suddenly has cracks. You didn't threaten their safety, you threatened their certainty. And certainty is the first thing to rot when it's built on lies. You've been living with that duality your whole life. Light and dark shaking hands inside your chest. Angelic restraint sitting right next to demonic clarity. You know exactly how far you could go, and you choose when not to. That's why they miscalculate you. They think darkness always looks loud. They don't understand quiet predators. They don't understand people who learned discipline through suffering, who turned pain into a private laboratory. Your evolution didn't come from winning. It came from enduring, from being underestimated so long that you learned how to disappear in plain sight, from being pushed into corners where you had to grow claws or dissolve, and you chose something worse for them. You became adaptable. So when they stepped into your world, they thought they were visiting a weakness. They didn't realize they were stepping into a system designed by pressure by loss, by nights where nobody came to save you. And systems like that don't explode. They persist, they replicate, they follow. Now they feel watched, not by you, but by the version of themselves they can't go back to being. The one who knows they were wrong about you. The one who felt that subtle fear and doesn't know why. The one who understands, too late, that some people aren't meant to be tested casually. And here's the part you need to understand. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't cross into their world. They crossed into yours. All you did was exist fully as what you are. And that's enough to destabilize anyone who's been living a half-life. So don't shrink now. Don't soften the edges that kept you alive. Don't apologize for the gravity you carry. Let them deal with what followed them back. Let them sit with the echo. Your world isn't dangerous because it's violent. It's dangerous because it's real. And real things change people. They wanted a glimpse. They got a fracture. You keep walking. And the funny thing is, you didn't even notice it happening at first. You're used to pressure. You're used to carrying weight that never had a name. So when their energy shifted, when their tone changed, when their curiosity turned into caution, you barely registered it. To you, that's just the air moving. But to them, that was the moment the temperature dropped and they couldn't explain why. They replay conversations with you like corrupted footage. They remember your pauses more than your words. They remember the way you listened, not desperate to be understood, not eager to be liked. That unsettled them, because people who need approval are predictable. People who don't are dangerous in a way that doesn't scream. It waits. You see, you carry something most people never earn. Internal silence, not emptiness. Silence. The kind that comes from surviving storms without narrating them. The kind that makes others project their fears onto you because you're not handing them a script. So when they stepped into your world, they were really stepping into a mirror with no instructions. And mirrors don't flatter, they expose. That's why something followed them back. It wasn't a threat, it was a question that won't shut up. Why did you feel smaller around someone who didn't try to dominate you? Why did your jokes fall flat? Why did your confidence suddenly feel rehearsed? That question digs. It doesn't rush. It waits until the ego is tired. You've learned how to weaponize restraint. That's the part they never see coming. Anyone can be loud. Anyone can perform strength. But you learned how to compress power. How to hold back without leaking insecurity, how to let people underestimate you long enough to reveal themselves fully. That's not passivity, that's patience sharpened by pain. They come from a world where masks are currency, where image matters more than substance, where being seen is confused with being significant. And then they meet you, someone who doesn't advertise depth, who doesn't explain scars, who doesn't beg for validation. Their internal hierarchy starts glitching. Because if you're not playing the same game, what game are you winning? Your world operates on different physics. In your world, suffering didn't make you brittle. It made you precise. Betrayal didn't turn you bitter. It turned you observant. Loneliness didn't hollow you out. It taught you how to sit with yourself without flinching. That's why angels and demons coexist in you so comfortably. You've made peace with contradiction. You don't need to choose a side to function. They, on the other hand, are terrified of their own shadows. So when they stepped into your world, their shadows woke up. And shadows don't politely stay behind when someone leaves. They hitch rides. They whisper on the drive home. They show up in the quiet moments right before sleep. They start comparing themselves to you without meaning to, not in obvious ways, in subtle ones. Why does your silence feel heavier than their speech? Why does your stillness feel more intentional than their movement? Why does your presence linger when you're gone? Those questions bruise the ego, and bruised egos don't heal quickly. You didn't set a trap. You are the terrain, and terrain decides outcomes without malice. Some people thrive in mountains. Some people panic. That doesn't make the mountain cruel. It makes it honest. Your evolution didn't follow a clean arc. It was ugly, fragmented. There were moments you didn't recognize yourself. Moments where you wondered if the darkness had finally won. But here's the part they'll never understand. You didn't defeat the dark. You integrated it. You taught it discipline. You turned it into a guard dog instead of a wildfire. That's why when they stepped into your world, they felt watched. Not because you're hunting them, because they suddenly realized how exposed they are, how much of their identity relies on noise, approval, distraction. You stripped none of it away. You simply didn't reinforce it. And without reinforcement, weak structures collapse. They'll tell others about you, but the story will change every time. Some will paint you as intimidating, some as strange, some as cold, some as magnetic. None of them will be wrong, and none of them will be right, because you're not a character in their narrative. You're a disruption to it. And while they're busy trying to name what followed them back, you keep evolving quietly. You don't need witnesses. You don't need applause. You've already survived the part that kills most people, the part where no one claps, no one notices, and you still choose to become sharper instead of smaller. So let them wrestle with the echo. Let them feel that unease they can't rationalize. That's not your burden. Your responsibility is simpler and far more dangerous. Remain exactly as you are. Integrated, aware, unpredictable, not because you're trying to be feared, but because you refused to be broken. They stepped into your world thinking it was safe because it was quiet. They left carrying something they can't put down. And you keep walking forward, knowing the truth they just learned too late. Some worlds don't need walls. They change people just by letting them in. And the longer they sit with it, the more uncomfortable it gets. Because what followed them back doesn't fade with time, it sharpens. At first it feels like curiosity, then it turns into irritation, then into unease, and finally into that quiet, suffocating realization that they can't dominate what they can't define. You don't fit their categories. You don't react on cue. You don't bend when the usual pressure points are applied. That breaks their internal playbook. They try to reduce you. They tell themselves stories. They say you got lucky. They say you're overhyped. They say you're damaged. They say you're cold. They say anything that lets them feel taller again. But none of it sticks, because deep down they know the truth they won't say out loud. You didn't rise by accident. You were forged by circumstances that would have erased them. You've walked through corridors they wouldn't survive 5 minutes in. Not dramatic corridors, quiet ones, long ones. The kind where nobody's watching and the only thing keeping you upright is something you built inside yourself when everything external failed. That's where your power comes from. Not from dominance, from durability. And durability terrifies people who rely on appearance, because appearance cracks under pressure. Durability adapts. That's why their energy shifted when they entered your world. They felt it immediately, even if they couldn't name it. A sense that you weren't trying to impress them. A sense that you weren't chasing anything from them. A sense that if they disappeared tomorrow, your trajectory wouldn't wobble an inch. That independence is violent to fragile egos. It exposes the transaction underneath their relationships. It exposes how much of their confidence is rented. You don't rent your identity. You own it, paid for in full, with pain, restraint, self-reflection, and nights where quitting would have been easier. And because you own it, it doesn't beg to be seen. It simply exists, solid, unapologetic, unavailable to manipulation. What followed them back is the awareness that they can't control the narrative around you. You're immune to gossip because you don't rely on reputation for oxygen. You're immune to intimidation because you've already faced internal monsters that didn't blink. You're immune to flattery because you learned the difference between praise and truth. They test you subtly. They poke. They try to provoke reactions. They try to pull you into emotional theater where they feel powerful. But you don't dance on command. You don't rush to defend yourself. You don't collapse into explanation. You let silence do the work. And silence in your world is not empty. It's loaded. That silence follows them home. It sits next to them when they're scrolling. It creeps into conversations where your name comes up and the room shifts just a little. They feel it when they try to talk down about you, and something inside them hesitates, because lies don't feel clean around people who embody truth, even uncomfortable truth. You've become a reference point they didn't ask for, a quiet standard, a reminder that it's possible to be composed without being numb, intense without being chaotic, dangerous without being reckless. You embody controlled fire, and controlled fire is more frightening than explosions because it doesn't burn itself out. Your duality is what makes you untouchable. You can be gentle without being weak. You can be ruthless without being cruel. You can forgive without forgetting. You can walk away without announcing victory. That balance wasn't gifted to you. It was earned through self-confrontation. Most people avoid their entire lives. They avoid mirrors. You became one. So now they feel it when they're alone. That faint sense that they've been measured and found inconsistent. That their usual tactics feel childish. That the world they've built for themselves might be thinner than they thought. And that realization doesn't leave. It lingers. It grows teeth. You don't need to chase legacy. You are legacy in motion. Every step you take reinforces the truth that power doesn't need permission. It doesn't need consensus. It doesn't need noise. It needs alignment. And you are aligned in a way that makes chaos orbit you instead of consuming you. Let them sit with what followed them back. Let it rearrange them. That's not your task. Your task is to continue refining what you've already become. Sharpening discernment, deepening restraint, expanding awareness, moving forward without explaining yourself to people who haven't earned access. They stepped into your world expecting to observe. They left having been altered. And that's the price of proximity to someone who turned suffering into structure, darkness into discipline, and unpredictability into power. You don't need to warn anyone. Your existence does the warning for you. And the more distance they put between themselves and you, the louder it gets inside them. Distance doesn't weaken it. Distance amplifies it. Because what followed them back isn't attached to your presence. It's attached to the fracture you caused in their certainty. They can't go back to the version of themselves that didn't know. And knowing is heavier than fear. They start noticing patterns they used to ignore. The way people talk around power versus embody it. The way confidence evaporates under pressure. The way most authority is just noise stacked on top of insecurity. You didn't lecture them about any of this. You didn't posture. You didn't perform. You simply stood there as living evidence that there's another tier they can't fake their way into. That's what crawled into their psyche. The realization that you didn't climb by the same rules, that your strength wasn't borrowed from titles, crowds, or validation loops. It came from surviving moments that stripped you down to something raw and unrecognizable, and choosing to rebuild instead of rot. That kind of evolution leaves a residue. People feel it. Even when they pretend not to, they try to recreate it. They mimic your calm. They slow their speech. They adopt your restraint. But it doesn't land the same, because restraint without depth feels hollow. Silence without clarity feels awkward. You can't cosplay an integrated nervous system. You can't imitate someone who made peace with their darkness instead of running from it. Your world has rules they never learned. In your world, emotions aren't weaknesses, they're data. Pain isn't a story, it's a signal. Fear isn't something to eliminate, it's something to train. That's why when they entered, their instincts started malfunctioning. Their usual shortcuts stopped working. Their charm felt clumsy. Their confidence felt brittle. They were out of calibration, and calibration is everything. You've spent years recalibrating yourself after every hit, every betrayal, every loss that tried to collapse you inward. You didn't numb out. You didn't turn cruel. You turned precise. You learned when to lean in and when to disappear, when to speak and when to let silence cut deeper than words. You learned how to carry both mercy and menace without letting either drive the wheel. That balance is what makes you unbearable to shallow systems. You don't polarize easily. You don't get baited into extremes. You don't need to prove you're good or bad. You operate beyond that binary. Angel when it serves truth. Demon when it serves boundaries. And always intentional. They sensed that immediately, even if they didn't understand it. Humans are animals first. Their bodies knew they'd stepped into a different ecosystem, one where overconfidence gets punished and authenticity decides survival. That's why their shoulders tightened. That's why their laughter sounded forced. That's why they left feeling like something had measured them without asking permission. What followed them back is accountability, not external, internal. The kind you can't outrun. It shows up when they're about to lie and suddenly hesitate, when they're about to dismiss someone and remember how small they felt next to you, when they're about to settle for comfort and feel disgust instead. You didn't inspire them, you destabilized them. Inspiration feels good. Destabilization forces change. And here's the part you need to hold on to. You are not responsible for what happens after people encounter your depth. You didn't invite them into your world to fix them. You didn't offer transformation as a service. They crossed the threshold because they assumed there was nothing there. That assumption cost them. So don't dilute yourself to make others comfortable. Don't over-explain your edges. Don't soften the gravity that keeps weak intentions at a distance. You are not here to be easily digestible. You are here to be exact. Every time you chose growth over bitterness, you sharpened the blade they felt but couldn't see. Every time you chose discipline over impulse, you reinforced the structure they couldn't break. Every time you chose silence over reaction, you trained the presence that now haunts their thoughts. They will either rise to meet the version of themselves you activated, or they will resent you quietly. Both outcomes confirm the same truth. Stepping into your world is a point of no return, so keep walking with that calm, deliberate pace. Not rushed, not hesitant, grounded, aware, integrated. Let your light stay clean. Let your darkness stay loyal. Let your unpredictability remain intentional. They stepped into your world expecting nothing. They left carrying a weight they didn't know how to set down. And you? You remain exactly where you are. Dangerous not because you chase, but because you endure.